Fire and Emergency Services Instructor, 8th Edition, Chapter 9, Records, Reports, and Scheduling.
Let's jump into Chapter 9, Records, Reports, and Scheduling. Shortest session. Discuss the difference between records and reports. Records are permanent counts of past events or actions taken by an individual, a unit, or an organization. Reports keep an administration informed of what's happening within the organization's members and divisions. It talks about accomplishments, problems, and daily training activities. So as an instructor, there's going to be several types of records that you're going to have to complete. Attendance records. Every time, every day, before class, I take attendance. If I've seen you or talked to you sometime in the day and you tell me you're on the webinar, you get marked down. If I see you in the classroom, you get marked down. If you're neither of those two positions, you don't get marked down, and you actually get penalized for not showing up to the webinar or to the live delivery. Applications for certification. Chief, you've probably seen this over the last couple of years. The state has moved aggressively from paper records for certification to the new digital records for certification. For example, when you set a course up, you have to go through the State Department of Homeland Security. They issue you a course number. They issue you all your information. You have to do that online. There's no other way around it besides filling out the online application for certification. It's pretty easy, and we'll show you how to do that after the system gets up and running. Incident or injury records. Let's say you're out on the fire ground or the training ground and you have a student who falls. You have to complete an injury record or an incident report. So that information can be passed down to the training division and also to the department secretary or whoever handles your work comp issues. Test records. All of your tests have been done online, so I haven't had to do any real test records. But I can go back and I can look at the questions that you answered, because they have a question bank that they pull all that information out of. I can actually go back through your tests and see what you've been having issues with the whole time through. Training reports. I have to submit a digital training report because the secretary here wants all that stuff documented in the record just in case it's necessary. And then scheduling. You have to be able to complete a scheduling form just to make sure that the other elements of your organization understand what's going on. You may be required to collect basic medical information from students, especially when we talk about 1403 operations. A lot of times, a lot of departments will have you fill out a waiver, and then they'll take a blood pressure or two after the first evolution, and then they'll track you through the entire process. That documentation is confidential. Follow all department policies and procedures for completing and maintaining those records. All training records should be considered private. Test scores and medical information are especially sensitive. Only the instructor and the student should have access to test scores. Instructors should not post records publicly or report test results over email. Test scores should be communicated directly to the student in writing. So kind of my bad on that one, giving you guys your scores so far in the course. Huh? Oh, yeah. Describe the different parts of most reports. You must be able to write clear, concise, and accurate reports. They must be accurately completed, properly filed, delivered in a timely fashion, and securely stored. So if on all these run reports I have turned in, it's my job to go through, clean them up, make sure they're ready to go, make sure they're ready for export to the state, make sure they're being filed on time and properly, delivering them in a timely fashion, and then securely stored. Almost all of our records are kept between the computer system and the office. Everything else, everything in that office is secured. Know how to organize a report narrative. You have a heading, you have an introduction, you have a body, and you have a conclusion or a summary. How about an after action report? When would you guys use an after action report in the training context? Into the class. What's good, what's bad, what we need to fix, what we don't need to fix, what we can add, so on and so forth. We'll do this for major incidents every once in a while. We'll do an after action report. Normally it's verbal, sitting around the table in here talking about the run. But some departments may expect that you actually write an after action report to have them be able to go through and review the information. Describe the responsibilities of an instructor one when scheduling training. Should be able to schedule individual training sessions for your organization. Some considerations. You have a sufficient planning period. You have student availability. You have mandated staffing levels. The availability of the facility. Their policies and procedures. And the equipment availability. So we normally start planning a course 3 to 6 months out, just so we have everything assembled. We'll assemble the planning template. We'll look at the training needs for the department. We'll go back through. We'll say, okay, in order for us to do this class here, this class and this class are prerequisites. Let's get those scheduled and then take the third class that requires the prerequisites.
So, mandated staffing level, an idea on that. If I'm going to take a class of 15 students to a tower for training, live fire, how many instructors do I have to have? Minimum? State will tell you if you're doing anything where there is a high probability of injury, you got to have almost one instructor per 2 students. Okay? So if I got 15 students, that means I got to have about 7 instructors. And that's about what I take when I go to the fire tower. Now, you can count any of their facilities. Like, for example, if I go to Bloomington Township Tower to do work, I guarantee you I'm going to be paying for at least 2 instructors, minimum. Because they've got to have one there that is a safety officer and one officer who's going to run the temperature to watch the temperatures don't get out of control. We can do all the rest ourselves, but there's going to be 2 right there that I got to take care of. Okay, and I can count that in as my 7, part of my 7 for 15 students. But what I usually did was I had one instructor per crew going in, and I usually make my crews of 2. Well, guess what? 2, 15, 7. Still back to that same number. So you've got to look at what the state requires as far as NFPA requirements on safety when you do a class. So it depends on what class you're doing. An instructor 1 class, I can do 15 to 25 students with one instructor because guess what? It's not like I'm getting out here swinging axes. So one person can keep an eye on you when you're doing your skills because there's no real heavy threat there. Any questions? Okay. So your instructor should be familiar with the department's procedures for delivering training. If I go to another department, you got to know what their policies and procedures are as well, because you're just visiting at their house, and you got to follow those rules. Summary. Level 1 instructors must be able to write and keep training records. Instructors should learn through practice to write accurate, concise, error-free reports and present them in a timely fashion. If you have to take a class on writing skills, so that and raise your spelling ability and so on and so forth, because you do not want to be presenting material to a class and you don't know how to spell, you don't know how to complete, proper structure, sentence structure, and so on and so forth, because you lose credibility with that. Instructors should know to whom they deliver reports and records and where those files are located and organized. Think about it this way. Once you become an Instructor 1, you are on the path of becoming an officer. Therefore, you are expected to know the material that you have to deal with. Instructors should also understand the legal requirements for preserving records. Any questions? That's chapter 9. We're done. That's it, isn't it?